James Donaldson, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
All right, good afternoon.
So tell us, why do you want to be Seattle's next mayor?
Because I can't just stand idly by or sit idly by and watch our beloved city continue on its downward spiral. None of the candidates I've seen so far inspire me and give me hope that things will get better and turn things around. So I decided to jump in myself with some good ideas and solutions, and my life of 40 years here in Seattle, and a lot of life experiences I'm bringing to the table. I know I can make a big difference and do a better job.
From a lot of the campaign ads and the rhetoric of all the other people running, it seems like a lot of people tout their resumes, but I think it really comes down to kind of two issues, right? Homelessness and policing. Mm-hmm. And those are interrelated. I mean, it's always interrelated, but to me, I think that's what voters are going to want to know, like what's going to take for this city to come out of that.
Right. And I think the third leg on that stool is revitalizing our businesses and our downtown business core, especially. It looks almost like a third world situation down there with boards up on all the windows. All the shops are pretty much closed and empty. The streets are emptied. The towers are emptied. We have a long way to go to revitalize that downtown business core. But you're right. The two other big issues are going to be policing and also the homeless issue. So I think me and my team have put together a lot of good, innovative strategies that involve a lot of compassion, understanding, problem solving, and some good new ideas that we want to actually implement, not just talk about. Just roll up our sleeves, get to work, make this stuff happen. It's not going to happen overnight. I want to reassure everyone or let them all know we didn't get here overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take 2 or 3 years to really start finally turning the corner. And that's after we get out of all the shutdown restrictions that are in place.
So let's talk about your ideas. And because I think what people are looking for is what's the vision? Other folks that are running, they may have the political experience that you don't have. But what do you bring to the table as a new idea that's really going to make a change? And let's start with homelessness.
Yeah, with homelessness, I really believe in intervening, getting to know these folks that are out on the streets in the tent encampments, really starting to find who they are, why they're out there, get their stories, and be able to provide the resources. Of course, we can't do much right now because of COVID and the safe distancing that are in place, social distancing that is in place for all the homeless shelters now. So that takes up a lot of space. We need to be able to provide additional housing and then be able to provide the services, be it mental health, substance abuse. A lot of folks are hiding out from their criminal backgrounds they may have. Let's work with all of those issues and then be able to get these folks into adequate, safe housing that will get them back on their feet, and we can start integrating them back into society as well.
I keep hearing that from everybody, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, so if that's a solution, why isn't it happening? What would you do to make it happen? Because everybody is saying the same thing.
Right. Essentially, yes, we are saying the same thing. I think our public safety officials are somewhat handcuffed at the moment because you can't just arrest your way out of the situation. They can take them off the streets due to trespassing violations or encampments and things, but where are you going to put them? That's not a solution. That's just a temporary Band-Aid that's just going to infuriate the situation. And so I think what we really need to do is just take a kind of an overall view at the picture. and say that, this piece fits here, this piece fits here. It's all combined together. But again, it's not going to happen overnight. We need additional housing. Where that housing comes from, well, now we need additional funding. We spent hundreds of millions of dollars at this problem, just throwing money at the wind. Those nonprofits that are wanting to be responsible for helping out the city need to be held accountable. If they're not doing the job, they no longer get funding. I think a lot of times we're just funding nonprofits just out of habit or out of a relationship we might have with them. But I want to do a means-tested approach. If you show us the results of the money we gave you last year and the year before, and then you'll qualify for additional money to keep doing the job. If you can't show us the results, you don't qualify, you're not getting the money.
Yeah, that's a real interesting point, because there is sort of an industrial homelessness complex going on in Seattle.
That's right. That's right. And it's really too bad. You've got these big factions, One are people who are trying to help the folks on the streets and get them into housing. And the other that are enabling the folks on the streets and keeping them out there on the streets. I was in my Safeway supermarket the other day. A homeless fellow walks in with a big old knapsack, and he's just filling it up with stuff off the shelf. The employees are sitting there just watching. They're helpless. They're disillusioned. All the work they're putting in to make these beautiful display aisles and everything else. And this guy comes in and takes $50 or $100 worth of goods and walks right across the street back to his homeless encampment. This happens all day long. We need to be able to say, no, that's not acceptable. Okay? We can get you some food if you want food, but you're not going to come in here and just take it off the shelves right in front of everybody with an attitude of flipping everybody out, cussing everybody off, because that that they can't stop you.
Well, then again, that points to probably one of the big aspects it's an issue of homelessness is mental health. Yes. And how do we deal with this? Because it's not just at the city level, there is also a state part of this as well. So how do you go about making sure that you're going to have the funding, the adequate funding to be able to handle these situations? I mean, what's the process that you do?
Yeah, face it, Enrique. Right now, every state, every municipality is strapped for cash. This has been a crushing year, 2020, of a COVID pandemic impacted year. Everything that happened in 2020 has an asterisk by it that explains that's why that is. Now, all these states and cities and municipalities are coming out of that short of revenue, short of a tax base that they typically have. The money has to come from the federal government onto the states and then trickle down to the municipalities to do something with. So we have to be in line and make that request of the monies that we need. But I think also at the same time, we have to be accountable for it and show that this is where the money is going to go. With mental health, for instance, mental health professionals should be out there in the field and assessing the needs of these various individuals. If it's mental health services, we get them housing, we provide the mental health services, and we got to be able to figure out how to pay for that. And that's going to be the big challenge right now. And this is why I'm such a big push towards revitalizing our downtown business core. Businesses will pay in, sales taxes pay in. We've been lacking all of that the last year. And right now we are just going to be working on fumes for the next year or two, trying to get ourselves out of this situation and back to solid ground.
Yeah, turn to the topic of law enforcement, right? Mm-hmm. You're a Black man. You watched what happened this summer in Seattle. First of all, as a Black man, what did you think was going on? And as a mayor, what would you have done? How would you have handled that?
Well, I take it you're referring to our Chop Chaz Summer of Love?
The whole disruption of direct action that happened from pretty much the summer and into the fall.
This is what really motivated me and inspired me to get involved with running for office. To see the total MIA, missing in action, of our elected officials. the non-responsiveness from the mayor, from the city council. No one was out there trying to calm the fears of the residents up on Capitol Hill. The residents who live there were having difficulty getting to and from their places of residence safely. They felt threatened. They hear noise all night long. Everything started picking up at 1 a.m. every night for months on end. Stores were being intimidated and glass was being broken on their storefronts. I was up there 2 or 3 days a week all summer long, reporting back on social media, little short video snippets of what I was seeing.
What would you have done? What would you have done?
Well, I would have, first of all, not allowed that to happen. There's no way you turn over 8 or 10 city blocks of a city to a group that just wants to be able to call it
but what does that look like? Police enforcement, National Guard, citizens?
Yes. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, you have to have law enforcement there. For the East Precinct to be ran out of there and the building effectively closed was just something that just goes against common sense. Our police chief at the time did not want that to happen, but she was being undermined and not supported in her efforts to keep the police there. Our police have been handcuffed and not allowed to do effective policing due to our city council and due to our mayor. That's just not the way to go about it. I would take those handcuffs off our police, allow them to arrest folks who are violating and rioting and looting and causing harm, property damage, and ultimately the death of 2 young African-American men. Our police have to be able to police effectively. We don't have a prosecutor who is going to prosecute anything anymore. And that's another big leg of this stool. And so right now we need an effective prosecuting attorney who's going to prosecute crimes. We need an effective city council who's going to not decriminalize just about everything out there except for rape and murder. No, there are things that need to be arrested and prosecuted for, and that's the kind of mayor I would be. And also you need a mayor who's going to be constantly messaging to the general public via media or being out there on the grounds, calling the news conferences together, the press, and saying, hey, this is what we are doing today.
Well, how do you monitor the fact that it will, just because by nature of law enforcement, will disproportionately affect people of color?
Well, that's an interesting thing because a lot of the folks I saw out there at Chop and Chaz were white folks.
Yeah, but they weren't arrested, right?
They weren't causing the harm during the day. It's at nighttime that things really got bad. And so at nighttime, I'm not sure what the exact demographic makeup was. There were more people of color at night. There was more vandalism and looting and everything else. But again, we have to be able to uphold the laws that are on the books and to allow, riotous behavior, breaking of glass, storefronts, burning of police cars, burning of the East Precinct. That is totally, totally unacceptable and against the law, and it needs to be arrested and prosecuted. There's no other way to look at this.
But how do you respond to some that say that the police really went too far with how they handled things and continued to crack down in a way that also, the police department has a consent decree they're dealing with right now. And even the judge and the folks overseeing those kept bringing that up, that this is also an issue that the Seattle Police Department is still facing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you have the complexities here are very complex and complicated.
Well, I don't make it any secret that I am in support of our police and law enforcement. I'm pro-police. I am not for defunding our police. I want our police to be able to police effectively and provide the public safety for everybody. And so these things are going to be a big, big problem moving forward. We lost 200 police officers in 2020 alone due to just attrition and early retirement and moving on to easier, job responsibilities in other cities. So we are shorthanded at the moment right now, but I want to make sure that our police are fully funded, continually trained, and make sure that they can effectively do the job in protecting and serving each and every one of us.
So, James, how would you, I guess, classify yourself if people were to label you in certain ways? Is it safe to say you're pro-business?
I'm a 28-year business owner, yes.
So
Pro-business.
then, as you just said, that you're pro-police. So obviously are you comfortable with some of the things that have happened within the Seattle Police Department that brought about the consent decree? Also, some of the actions and the dealings that have become controversial with the police union.
I'm not comfortable with all of the things that have gone on. This is why we're having the consent decree. And we have to make sure that, things are addressed. People who are responsible and need to be, made to pay whatever price or punishment they need to pay. We had at one time a model police department just a year or two ago that was said so by the mayor of Seattle, that we were a model for the rest of the country. And then all of a sudden, the police department gets degraded and defunded, continued efforts to defund even further. I don't know exactly, other than continuing to work on the issues in the consent decree, what else we can do to make sure that our police officers are the best that they can absolutely be. I think we overlook the fact that, yes, they have a very high responsibility, high stress job, the police officers. It's not like, running a business where you might have one bad apple and you can put that person into training and make them a better employee. Police officers have the ability to take a life right there in their holster if they have to, or hopefully, God forbid, if they ever want to or need to. But if they have to, they definitely can do that. That's a huge, huge responsibility. I realize that all of them are family people of some sort or another, somebody's husband, somebody's wife, and so they want to go home safely at night as well. Policing is a very, very difficult job. I don't know if you've ever followed along on a beat or did a ride along, but it's a very, very difficult job that you have to make not only a millisecond decision. It's got to be even quicker than that, And so that's why I see the police as our friend and somebody that can support and serve each and every one of us, just as the police were when I was a kid growing up. Things have changed now. And now police are being deemed as the bad guys, trying to protect communities of color, which need police and call on police and rely on police more than communities of non-color. So it's a funny kind of juxtaposition going on. We need police more than anybody, communities of color. As a man of color, I understand this. I've grown up with this. But we can't take the step to defund them and then not have them available when we do call them.
That it's interesting, the idea of policing communities of color. One area in the city that's near and dear to my heart is the International District. And it's the one authentic ethnic neighborhood left. I mean, the Central District has been decimated with gentrification. There are no Black businesses. They're coming back slowly, but not like it was. No. And the Chinatown International District is being inundated with development requests, the lack of policing, lawlessness, anti-Asian hate, graffiti, store break-ins. The city just has never cared for decades. As mayor, what are you going to pledge to do for this neighborhood? Because they are in sore need of help.
That's right. That's exactly right. I think now that we are in this recent era of hate against Asian Americans, not only here in the city, but across the country, we need to be cognizant of that. And as a mayor, I would make sure that our police are providing safety to the international district and to those businesses and to those folks that live there or frequent there. I frequent there myself quite often. I enjoy, the Asian stores and restaurants and everything else down there. So we need to make sure that they feel safe and protected just as well as anybody else. Again, with resources now in short supply, lacking 200 officers, therefore, we need to be able to respond when someone from the international district does call in need of help and police coverage.
Well, but that doesn't happen now. I mean, the calls are late. No one shows up. I mean, the response time in the international district, which is near a precinct, right, is much slower than if you're in Laurelhurst. I mean, Laurelhurst, they're there.
Okay, I don't know that for a fact, but if that's the fact, then we can do better than that. And I would make sure that we put a special emphasis on covering especially now in this era of hating Asians, make sure we put a special emphasis on our police responding quickly and getting over there to provide the coverage they need.
You're dealing with a city council that I think it's pretty safe to say they're to the left, and some would say to the far left. How would you work with the council? Because it sounds to me like you're more in the it's safe to say you're right of center?
No, I wouldn't say. I'd say center and moderate. I mean, I've always had the ability to work with both sides of any issue, either party, left or right. My voting record even is depending on the issue, depending on the candidate. I vote left, I vote right. I'm a lifelong Democrat, registered Democrat. I've always been. And so that's where I am. But I bring a very common sense approach to governing and to leadership. I know the city council is far left and progressive and semi-socialist, even a couple of them. But I think I have the ability to reasonably have a conversation and rationally talk with them and help us to find that win-win for both sides. This can't be an all or nothing game. Politics should never be about all or nothing. It's got to be about governing for everybody and making sure that, we lift the boats in the rising tide of everyone, not just a select few. That's what got our mayor in trouble this past summer. She just paid attention to a select few and totally turned her back on 80, 90% of the rest of the electorate out there. And shame on them. They stayed quiet and let it happen. You can't stay quiet. This is why I'm jumping into it. I don't want to be quiet. I want to roll up my sleeves, put my hard hat on, and get to work and make sure that we get the job done.
How do you counteract this whole, by some in the media, all right, that Seattle is dying? It's this hellhole. And I mean, that's a narrative that's out there that I personally don't believe because I love Seattle. But how do you counteract that when people say, I don't want to go to Seattle, it's unsafe, it's horrible? What's your response to that?
I hear that more often than not. I'd say on a ratio of 10, I'd say 8 people will tell me Seattle's dying and 2 would be okay with it. Okay. I tend to believe Seattle's dying. I've been here for 40 years myself. I've seen the great heights that Seattle achieved, 15, 20, 30 years ago when we were actually known as the crown jewel of the Pacific Northwest. Remember those days? We called the Emerald City. Nobody calls us these things anymore. We were far ahead of Portland and Tacoma and Bellevue and Vancouver, BC. And yeah, I'll say it that way. And they knew it too. We were the destination part in the Northwest, but no longer. Things have really gone downhill. I'd say since I ran for mayor last time in 2009, we've been on this downward trajectory of mayor after mayor, city council members after city council members, and letting this poor city just fall apart underneath our watch.
So what's your vision? How do we get back to that point?
again, working on those three legs of the stool, restoring our downtown business core, getting that vitality back. Businesses in the neighborhoods, businesses bring vitality to a neighborhood. Businesses hire neighbors. This is what really brings a city together. When you have, mom and pop shops and big corporations all churning away and doing what they do and paying into our tax base that we can do better for everybody. Also restoring trust in public safety. Right now, we are lacking trust in our public safety folks or the police specifically, but we're lacking trust in that they will do a good job and an adequate job. I don't profess that any of them are perfect. There's always going to be some idiot that's going to do something stupid. But it was the same on my basketball teams. There was always somebody who was an idiot who made life difficult. Always. But you deal with that person. You either get them off the team or you reprimand them, you suspend them, you do something. You have to do the same with the police officers. And then the last piece is the homelessness issue. It pains me to see Seattle now with people in tents and encampments all over the city. Walking downtown on 2nd and 3rd Avenue, the stench that comes up from the sidewalks, human excrement and urine and trash. And this is not the Seattle. You guys have been here as long as I have. This is not the Seattle we deserve to have. We deserve much, much better, and we can do much, much better. I will make sure that we do much, much better.
So, James, I think you have name recognition. You definitely are someone that stands above the crowd at 7. What are you? What are you? 7 feet, 7'1"?
7'2".
7'2". Oh, excuse me. Yeah. God, I'm like a really small guy compared to you. Anyway, in recent years, you've had some tough challenges. Yes. You've had some business failures. You've had some tremendous health issues that I'm surprised that you are still even walking today.
Me too.
Why then take on this challenge? Are you up to it physically and mentally, considering what you've gone through, the challenges that you've had in your own life?
Yes. I look back to 2009 when I ran for mayor the first time and my first involvement with a campaign for political office. Back then I was, a former NBA player, established business guy, community recognition stuff. And that was about it. Now, 12 years later, I bring that and a whole array of life experiences to the table that I didn't have before. I don't know if you fully know my story, but it started 5-6 years ago when I had a major surgical procedure heart, just out of nowhere. I was always in great shape. I always took care of myself. But here
James, can I interrupt you for a minute? You cut out on. I'm going to have you just start up about that again because I want to make sure we get this. So start up. You had challenging. Hey, tell us about your health issues.
Yeah, so starting 2015, I had a major open heart surgical procedure for an aorta dissection. If you know anything about the heart, the aorta is a big vessel that comes off the top of it and also a smaller one off the bottom. Mine was right on the verge of rupturing. And if that thing ruptures, you have about a half dozen heartbeats left before you totally bleed out, and there's nothing anybody can do. I went to my doctor that day. I wasn't feeling particularly well, and I fell out in his lobby of his office. After seeing the reception desk, everything just went black. I woke up 2 weeks later, and they ran me up to Cherry Hill, Swedish Hospital, did a 12-hour emergency open heart surgery on my heart to restore it and put it back together again. It was just hanging there by a membrane. And if that membrane would have burst, it would have been over. And so by the grace of God, I'm still here. But that began my downward spiral over the next 5 years of another surgical procedure, just as serious, the following year on my descending aorta. My mother passed away 2016. My wife walked out on our marriage. Took her little boy with her, my stepson, for 5 years. My business that I had been running, the Donaldson Clinic, physical therapy, sports rehab, started going sideways because financially it was being challenged, and I wasn't there behind the wheel to do what a business owner does. I had a great management team and they were managing, but a business owner is, proactive and visionary and all those other things. I wasn't able to do that for a couple of years. I threw all of my life savings from my NBA days into my business, trying to save it. I had 25 employees I felt very, very responsible for and obligated to. They had done such a great job over the years. I was going to any extent to save the business so we can all stay together. Ultimately, that failed. I filed for bankruptcy. I went through a foreclosure. I was nearly evicted. And so all of these life experiences, plus this all started a downward spiral into the depths and the deep darkness of mental health and anxiety and depression and suicidal ideations. I've been through it. I mean, these last 5 years have really given me life experiences I never imagined I would have to go through. 2018 was the darkest part of all that. 12 months of total darkness, where I had no hope. And I was really thinking about exiting this world. But I came out of 2018 after getting some medical help, some prescription medication, behavioral health counselors, a small intimate group of support friends around me. Finally, I came out of that and got myself back on solid ground. A total restart. I lost my home. Had to do apartment living. I'm doing apartment living now for the first time since my WSU days. And so here I am starting all the way over, but I'm back on solid ground, physically, mentally, emotionally. I'm stable as a rock. I think I'm better than I ever have been. And I'm bringing all these life experiences to the table now. I understand homelessness or near homelessness. I understand tens of thousands of people around Seattle who are going to be facing eviction once these moratoriums are lifted. I understand foreclosure. I understand bankruptcy. I understand medical procedures. I had 4 major surgeries in 5 years. These things put me through the ringer, but I came out much, much better for it and much, I think, better prepared to serve and to lead and to guide our city back. If I can go through the downs and the drudgery of being upside down, such as Seattle is very close to being, I came back, Seattle can come back.
It's interesting. This period of running for mayor, the field of candidates, I don't believe has ever been stronger. I mean, there's a lot of formidable people. So it's going to be a very interesting race.
True, but none of them are really running in the same lane I'm running in. I'm not a politician by trade or by experience. I've never been in elected office before. I've run a couple of times. So now we've got some former and current politicians running. We've got a lot of community activists, folks doing it, nonprofit execs and things like that. I don't think any of them bring the wealth of experience that I bring. I don't want to be a typical politician. I don't want to do politics as usual. I want to be serving the people and be a true servant of the people. This isn't about me trying to put another feather of accomplishment into my cap. I don't need it. I want to do it. And I feel that I can do a great job bringing a great team around me. I don't profess to know everything, but there's a lot of folks around town who have been here through the great heights of Seattle 10, 15, 20 years ago. I want to bring them back in together and help us to restore Seattle to its former glory.
James Donaldson, thank you for your time and good luck. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
Yep.
Good luck. This is going to be a very interesting race this year, and best of luck to you. And sounds like you're on good footing to move forward.
I feel better than ever. So thank you. I'm just blessed and glad to be here still. Thank you.